I completely understand why we've created that dynamic, or we've set up the boundary to essentially not equate people with mental illnesses. Essentially saying that, you know, you're not just your mental illness, you're more than that. Yes, you are. We are. I am. At the end of the day, you all can do whatever the fuck y'all want to do, because that's what life is about, right? Living your best life, your best life. So saying I'm mentally ill, saying that, you know, I'm all of these different things, definitely has a certain connotation to it. Definitely does. But as a society, we make connotations. Like, we can change the connotations to things. So at the end of the day, it's not my fault that y'all see these things or associate these words, these illnesses, mentally ill itself, like the idea of being mentally ill. Like, I can still be mentally ill and still be that bitch. That's all I'm saying. One of my biggest desires is that, you know, in the near future, or in the future at all, I can walk into a room, a restaurant, a workplace, just I can walk out into society and say, I'm living with bipolar disorder. And, you know, it's not like immediately met with negative connotations, because I didn't say anything negative. I wouldn't say that I wish I didn't have it, but I definitely don't wish I have it, or I would never wish I had it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that my value, my worth as a person, and the things that I can do and the things I bring to the table are not defined by my bipolar disorder. Like, that's the differentiation I'm trying to make. But I still have it. I still definitely have it, and it's still definitely a huge part of me, and I'm gonna bring it up every which way and everywhere that it applies, because guess what? It applies to everything. You really think about it, it's like me looking at somebody who wears glasses. I don't wear glasses, but it's like saying, like, bitch, you can't see. Like, you literally cannot see. Well, some of y'all, but it's like you literally cannot see without those glasses. But like, we don't think of that as well, I think that was like a thing a long time ago, but not anymore. I mean, if you do, you're childish. We see glasses, we see that you need them, we allow you to have them, we don't think that you're less than. We still let y'all drive, and y'all literally cannot see. That's all I'm saying. This kind of was inspired by a friend of mine, by a few friends of mine. He basically asked me, you know, what it's like, how has it been living with bipolar disorder? So like, I was kind of just like, what? He explained it that he started dating a girl who was diagnosed with bipolar 2. I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder 1. They're different. But essentially, he was wondering, not what he was getting himself into, but like, yeah, he was just kind of wondering like how's it been, I guess. But it basically came along the lines of, you know, he saw bipolar disorder as something that I've embraced as a personality trait, or as something that I use as an identifier. We talk a lot, but we don't talk a lot, if that makes sense. So I can probably scroll up and see exactly what he said. So this is how the conversation read. Not sure how to ask this, but do you have bipolar 1 or bipolar 2? Or neither? Because there's more than just bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. And then he was like, what's that like for you? And I was like, big question. He says, I feel like you choose to let it define you. When you can be whoever you want to be, but IDK, I could be off base. And I think a lot of people would have jumped down his throat and been like, I don't choose anything, bro. Like, it's not my fault, blah, 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 whatever the fuck you want to say. But it actually got me thinking, in the sense that, do I let bipolar disorder define me? Is that a defining characteristic of myself? And I couldn't answer that for the longest time, because every part of me wanted to say, like, no, I'm not defined by my bipolar disorder. Like, of course not. I'm so much more than that. I'm not bipolar disorder, blah, 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 blah. Then I started thinking, like, okay, how can you not be defined by something? Not saying that, like, that's the only definition I have. Like, I am defined by many things. But quite literally, bipolar disorder is something that affects my life every single day, every single moment of every single minute. And I'm constantly changing my behaviors, changing my life. Like, you know, I'm adapting my life to basically soothe my bipolar disorder. There's a totally better way to say that. But, you know, you make adaptations in your life because you have a disability. You have a mental illness. I have bipolar disorder. It's a disability. It's a mental illness. It's all of those things. I'm making adaptations every day to make sure that I can live happily, normally-ish, and, you know, thrive. So in that case, it's like, how the fuck doesn't it define you? Because it's not ruling your life, but it's a big part of it. Following that, though, I started thinking, like, okay, why is it a problem that it defines me? I think that's sort of in my mind, after I got past the part of like, okay, do I let bipolar disorder define me? Yes, I do, because it rules my life. Like, it doesn't, I control my life, but like, essentially think about somebody who's in a wheelchair. You know, they're more than just, there's a name for that. A paraplegic, maybe, I think is what it's called. They're more than just their disability. They're more than just their physical handicap. But they can't fucking, our world, our society caters to people who aren't in wheelchairs, you know? So in that case, every single day, they're not defined, like that's not the only thing that defines them. They're more than that, but they are like physically handicapped. They are physically disabled, and that's a part of their defining characteristic, because they can't, like, they have to think about the world differently. Not that they can't do things the same way that we can, or they can't, you know, have the same talents. They can't have this, like, they don't, I'm not trying to diminish their worth. I'm not trying to diminish my worth. But that's a defining characteristic. If, you know, you have to think about that every single day and adapt your life to live that way, like to live as normally as possible. That's a defining characteristic. And that's when I moved on to the idea that, like, okay, why is that a bad thing? Why do we think of these things as a bad thing? And I think that really contributes to the stigma around mental illnesses, is that by separating myself from my illness, by saying I'm more, and this is just the way I live, this is just my thoughts on my own health. You do whatever the fuck you want to do, I don't really care. Like, live your best life, I mean, like, no shade. But this is just the way I see it. By differentiating myself, by separating myself from my illness, by saying that, like, I'm more than this, like, obviously I'm more than this. Maybe not obviously, maybe y'all like don't know, but if I say to people, or if I say to myself that I am more than my illness, if I'm trying to separate myself from it, if I'm trying to distance myself from it, I'm essentially making it a negative thing by distancing myself. I'm saying that, like, this is a negative, or this is a bad thing. This is something that I don't want to be defined as. It's not me. Like, it's not me. It's not who I am. Don't, like, think of me that way. When in reality, it's like, no, that's me. I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder, and I experience symptoms, and it's fucking challenging, and I have to do things about it. But that doesn't diminish my worth, my value, or anything like that. And for some reason, when people, and I say people, I just keep thinking about my father, but because he believes this so strongly. But when I talk to him about having bipolar disorder, because he doesn't believe that it's real or that it exists, even though he was diagnosed with it himself, it's probably why I have it, along with all the trauma that I've gone through. When I talk to him about it, he's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You, like, can get through anything you want to get through. Like, you're stronger than this, blah, 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 blah. In a similar way, or a similar mannerism as my friend did, when my friend said, you can be whoever you want to be. Just my dad's a lot more toxic and he isn't able to have these conversations. Like, my friend and I had a very good conversation because I was genuinely curious about, do I let it define me? But the idea that, like, I can be whoever I want to be, I can still be whoever I want to be with bipolar disorder. And for some reason in our society, that's just not seen or, like, understood. Or when somebody says they have a mental illness, when someone says they have a disability, when someone says they have something, yes, it makes things challenging. It makes life, that's an understatement. It changes life completely. I don't see my bipolar disorder as a bad thing. I don't see it as a negative thing. I just see it as a thing. Sure, you know, it's challenging and awful at times, and, like, quite literally the worst thing ever, and makes you want to, well, you know what it does sometimes when you're a little depressed. But it's not like, it does have obviously these bad times, and I don't want to romanticize it by saying, like, it's not that bad. It is that bad, and it's like the worst thing ever right now. I mean, or it has been in the past. Quite literally having to leave my job last year and not, like, being able to return to my job. It's been more than a year. It being the reason, you know, obviously there's, like, I'm not saying it's all on the illness. Actually, no, it definitely is all on the illness. I'm not blaming necessarily my bipolar disorder for the way my life has turned out, because my life is not shitty. I would never consider my life to be shitty. I don't think my life is a bad life. I'm not depressed right now. If I was depressed, I'm pretty sure that, like, yeah, I'd be like, oh, I just can't. I would never consider my life to be a shitty life. But, you know, bipolar disorder is not fun, it's not great, it's none of that. Even then though, in the colloquial sense, in the societal sense, like, the idea that there's something wrong with me, my father would always say, you know, I'd bring up to him my bipolar diagnosis, and he'd be like, there's nothing wrong with you, why do you think there's something wrong with you, why would you let people tell you there's something wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you, you figure it out. And I'm like, I don't think that way. I don't know. I know I have bipolar disorder. It's not a great thing. I'm not like, woohoo, bipolar. Well, if you're manic. But I'm not like, yo, let's fucking go, bipolar. I don't consider it, I don't feel pity. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I don't have pity on myself. Like, oh, woe is me. Like, my life sucks and, everything's hard and, I just can't do anything. I see it as I'm living with a disability. And I think that sort of flows into my next problem. And number one, I have bipolar disorder. I can admit that. That's just something I have, just like some people have to wear glasses. Like, you don't see me walking around saying oh, don't let people tell you there's something wrong with you because you can't see, bitch. Like, there's nothing wrong with you, but you can't see. So, you gotta wear glasses. I have bipolar disorder, so I have to do certain things in my life to manage that. I have to do certain things in my life to adapt to that. Certain things that, I don't want to say there's certain things I can't do. There's certain things that I shouldn't do, though. And I think that is the case with anybody, though, in life. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's, weird. But I'm saying all of this because I've had friends, or a friend, or I've had friends in general lately, you know, tell me to either, suck it up, or, tell me that I'm, need to get over it, or tell me, they see it as something that is an obstacle that I can push through and just put to the side. And I have less issue with the fact that, they see, I have that's not necessarily my issue. While yes, that's kind of fucked up, it's more so that they don't seem to understand that, I don't see myself not pushing through at all. But I honestly, just talking to my friends, it's oh, I can't go back to the certain job that I had before, the certain job that I had last year, because it will fuck my bipolar disorder up and I'll be all fucked up again. Bitch, I don't see that as a bad thing. But I guess technically that's limiting myself, that's limiting what I can do. If I really, really, really wanted to go back to the job regardless, if I wanted to go back to the job, I'm pretty sure I can maybe work something out. But I think of it as a personal preference. It's yes, it's because of my bipolar disorder, but it's also, I don't want to put myself through that. So even people who don't have disorders, people who don't have disabilities, even people who don't have disabilities, they want to do things and they don't want to do things. The friend who I was talking to, they never want to leave the neighborhood when they never want to leave the neighborhood when we're going for lunch or going for dinner or doing anything. And it's well, just push through, bitch. It's not that hard. Just come on. It's more so that if I were to go back to my job, I would be traveling every week, and traveling, routine, all of that fucks up my bipolar disorder. It stresses me out, makes my mood all out of whack, and it's just not something that I want to be doing anymore. But I don't see that as something as being a push through moment. I don't know. But I feel that's what people are taking when I start talking about accommodations for my bipolar disorder. And it's bothering me because, I think quite literally it was said to me either by this friend or somebody else. They're I just think that you're using that as a crutch for almost everything in life. And it's well, bipolar disorder is a brain disorder. And in my mind, it's well, yes, I am changing my lifestyle because I'm living with a serious mental disorder, a serious brain disorder, a serious neurological disorder that is what do you want me to do? So I guess you can't really change that in people, can you? I've never, thought because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder that my life was over, that, I can't be whoever I want to be, quote unquote. I've never thought that. I've thought that, I'm still me, and this explains a lot of my behaviors, and we gotta deal with it and work through it. So, I don't understand that. It's seen as a negative thing to be. It just is a thing to be. I also wanted to talk about how fucking challenging and hard and crippling and just impossible living with bipolar disorder can be at sometimes. And I know that that's kind of, I'm not sure if that's ironic or it could be an oxymoron or it's contradicting. I'm not really sure what you would call it. people just don't get it. People don't understand it. If it's not people thinking that, you know, I can push through these things, how do I want to word this? Essentially, my idea here, or the thing that I wanted to talk about, was that when I tell people I'm living with bipolar disorder, the people who know me, the people who do whatever they need to do, they think about bipolar disorder, as I said earlier, as being mania, depression, that's it. And if you're not in that state, then, like, your life is fine, or, like, you can just take medicine and you'll be fine. They don't see it as a severe, serious mental illness, whereas, quite literally, it's the 6th leading cause of disability worldwide. Like, the 6th leading cause, at least according to the World Health Organization. So it's not something that's easy, you know? And I guess this is where I contradict myself in a way, in the sense that, like, it's the 6th leading cause of disability. It's super fucking challenging. It's super hard. I have no idea how I'm gonna get through it on some days. But, like, don't try me, bitch. I can still do whatever I want to do in life. Which I know sounds weird, but that's actually how I feel. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. And I think that's the biggest message out of all of this. It's just that I'm still me at the end of the day. Even if, like, life gets me down, life is hard, life is challenging. I mean, like, there are people out there who are living with, well, I guess bipolar disorder is malignant and can be lethal. But, like, people out there, think about it in terms of the way that society understands diseases and understands disorders and all of that. There are people out there winning fucking Olympics who have no legs, no arms, no, like, I mean, it's the Special Olympics, but, like, still, half the shit they do I can't do. I guess that's the point I'm trying to say, is that we are still people with amazing abilities, with amazing gifts, with amazing things to offer to the world. Now, it doesn't mean that, like, we're not fucking fighting for our lives in our heads, or at least people with bipolar disorder, it literally feels like I'm fighting for my life out here. But it's all in my head. Literally fighting for my life, like, for real, for real. Like, life is hard, yeah, but that's what makes us that much better, because we're still here, and we're still fighting. And if anyone honestly knew what the fuck we went through half the time, like, on a daily basis, they would be like, wow, how the like, you're, like, wow. Because if I were you, I would be, jokes, sort of. So you're probably wondering, like, okay, what else the fuck do you go through then? Because bipolar disorder, the definition of it is extreme mood shifts. Let's see actually what the definition is. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder, a disorder associated with episodes of mood swings ranging from depressive lows to manic highs. That's the reason why I started this channel to begin with, y'all, because that's like the worst definition ever. Bipolar disorder can be a lot of things. So yes, it's that. But, like, depressive lows, I don't even, like, that just doesn't feel right to say. Like, depressive lows, I would say, like, it's more like depressing, crippling, like, sadness that you just can't carry on. You have no idea what's going on. You think everyone hates you. It comes with paranoia. Like, you literally can't do anything. You can't, like, take a shower. You can't brush your teeth. They have no idea about, like, the cognitive impairment, the executive functioning problems, the memory loss problems. I think last year when I was dating my ex, we were at dinner. It doesn't really matter where the fuck we were at. But the point is, we were at dinner, I think, though, and they basically said, like, I was with my friend, and they were with me, and it was me, obviously. But I was talking about my memory problems, and I was saying I'm having trouble remembering these things, and I'm having trouble, like, staying on task. Essentially, my cognitive impairment, if you don't watch this channel, was fucked, and it was deteriorating fast. But I was having lots of problems with my cognition, and just being able to do basic ass, what you would consider basic ass shit. Like, if I'm getting ready in the morning, I would forget, like, okay, what am I doing? Like, obviously I'm getting ready, but it's hard to explain. Like, it's shit like that that you don't expect to be a problem, but it becomes a problem, the most basic shit. And that's, like, why my life is the way it is now. It went up in flames, had to take time off of work, couldn't do shit, couldn't drive. It was a whole thing, y'all. You gotta go back and check out those videos because I'm not getting all into it, but it's those, like, it's the non-belief things. People don't believe how hard it is. And I don't understand why that is. Like, why is it so hard for y'all to believe? Because, like, we're living proof of it all. I think on top of that, I forgot who said this to me. I've been told so many things that I've let slide just because, like, I didn't realize they were stigma or stigmatizing, or they didn't bother me, or, you know, I believed them too because, you know, even living with bipolar disorder, I have certain stigmas about it that I've been taught by society that I'm trying to let go. But the idea that, you know, they're like, people will always say, you're always talking about your anxiety, you're always talking about your bipolar disorder, like, everything has to do with your bipolar disorder. And it's like, well, yeah, because, bitch, everything does have to do with my bipolar disorder. Hence why I'm defined by it. But it's, like, not a bad thing necessarily, but, like, I just have to adhere to it. If I don't, that's when shit gets bad. I don't adhere to all of this perfectly. But in a perfect world, you know, sleep, what I'm eating, what I'm drinking in terms of, is it alcohol, is it non-alcoholic, is it sugary, is it non-sugary, all of that right there, eating and sleeping, that's basically, I don't know, I'm not sure a percentage, but that's what we're doing, like, most of the time, eating and sleeping, and drinking, like alcohol and going out and stuff. All of that shit is so much of our life, at least it's so much of my life. And at the same time, those things are also very important when it comes to bipolar disorder. You know, you're not really supposed to drink alcohol, and if you do drink alcohol, you're not supposed to drink a lot of alcohol when you're bipolar, especially if you're bipolar and you're unmedicated. Food matters a whole bunch, like the bipolar diet. Like, I'm not supposed to eat a lot of sugar. I'm not supposed to have a lot of sugary things. I'm supposed to eat certain foods to help regulate my brain chemicals, help maintain homeostasis, and, like, don't throw things out of whack. Sleep, you know, the one thing that can spur mania, the one thing that can spur psychosis is not sleeping. So right there off the bat, those things are things I don't think about all the time, and I definitely should be, and that's my fault. The onus is on me. But, like, that's life right there, baby. So yeah, bipolar disorder does, like, affect my life, and it is almost in every single aspect of it. Number one, why is that not understood? In the sense that, like, people really just think that it's easy to push past that, when it's like, no, I have to do these things for my health. Number two, when I do those things for my health, they look at it as a negative, and they're like, oh, you are better than this, you shouldn't let this define you, or, like, you shouldn't, like, they see this all as a negative thing. They're like, you don't need to do this, like, you're letting it define you, you're letting it happen to you. And I'm like, no, bitch, like, see what happens when I don't think about these things, when I don't care about these things. Like, I'm gonna be, I was about to say something really stereotypical, but it's happened to me. Anyway, I'm not gonna say that, because that's just gonna fuel the fire. I love stereotypes, because they low-key be true. I don't know, y'all. I think at the end of the day, and I'm kind of just rambling here, this whole issue is multifaceted. And when it comes down to breaking down the stigma, furthering acceptance of bipolar disorder, furthering knowledge of bipolar disorder, furthering just society in general, it comes down to the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding, which I've always considered to be the greatest deficit to mental wellness, is our lack of understanding, our lack of knowledge on certain issues. The fact that, you know, people don't understand a lot about what bipolar disorder is. It's more than just happy, it's more than just sad, it's more than just mood swings, and they don't understand, you know, it's more than just taking medication to fix it. That's not, bipolar recovery in the perfect world has to do with sleep, has to do with food, has to do with medication, has to do with therapy, has to do with so much. There's just so many things that matter with bipolar disorder that aren't what is known out there. And that lack of knowledge, number one, makes it seem like it's this trivial, easy thing to deal with, or maybe not easy thing. Like, people obviously see it as being a mental illness that's very serious, but they only see it that way when you're, like, in psychosis. They only see it that way when you're depressed. They only see it that way when you're manic. They only see it that way in the extreme versions of it. And then even then, they're like, did you take your medicine? Because the way someone said that to me, like, I have a whole nother video coming out about that. Someone told me that 2-3 weeks ago, and it's like, the fuck did you just say to me? And added to all of this, like, added to the idea that people don't understand how challenging it is, how much work it is, and how pervasive it is in disrupting life. They see it as something that can be easily moved past, easily dealt with, and sometimes it is. Honestly, sometimes it is. I've heard people have different types of bipolar disorder, people have different severity of bipolar disorder. Sometimes medication works for those people, like, right off the bat. For me, example, like, lithium, I was living my best life on lithium until I wasn't, because lithium fucking fucked my shit up, and I was losing hair, I had a lymph node, there was, like, other shit that was not explained. Like, until then, though, it was great. So it's like, some people are groovy, some people are not. And it's that lack of in-depth experience with it that contributes to the idea that we can just push past it, and that it's a negative thing to be defined by, when in reality it's probably a strength, I would say. The fact that I'm living with a severe mental illness, sixth leading cause of disability in the world. I've quite literally lost my mind. I've quite literally have lost my ability, like cognitive abilities at times. I've lost my executive abilities at times. The fact that I go through that, and I've gone through those extremes, and I've gone through medication changes that have fucked me up and had the worst side effects. The fact that I've gone through all of this, and I'm still here, like, number one, I'm still here standing. Like, I'm still alive. I'm still somewhat sane. Is a positive, a dope thing to me. Like, that's fucking dope. And then added on to that, the fact that I'm not only here and alive, but I'm thriving, that's even more dope. So, I don't know, yeah, that's just how I see it. For whatever reason, no one else sees it that way. But I wish they did, because if they knew, like, how much work it took for me mentally to do and live normally out here, y'all would be amazed. And I don't want to speak for anybody, but that goes for the majority of us, I would think. Like, the fact that we're all somewhat sane, or at least trying out here, or, you know, we're out here making it. There's millions of us out there, and we're all, like, living with this, trying to make it out here. You normal people, y'all have no clue, no idea. But that's the point of this video. You should learn, educate yourself, listen, and don't come with your preconceived ideas and thoughts about something that you have never experienced. And I know that's hard, that's super challenging. Like, it's almost impossible, but you can try to, and that's the best that we can do in life. Y'all know what to do. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, then, like, I'll forgive you, but you should have done that 10 minutes ago, maybe, like, just the beginning of this video. Love y'all anyway. I'll hit y'all back soon, and remember to stay fresh, stay clean. What does Outkast say? He just says, so fresh and so clean. I'm really fucking lame and awkward, so I'm gonna just go. Peace.